the thing that annoyed people the most was now these people who came out openly and they were going to Trump rallies and giving speeches. And most of these big influencers who are Trump, they have gone into hiding, and they're not telling us anything. And I think this is a point where I would love for those, be they scholars or be they any kind of Muslim influencers who are actively telling people to go vote for Trump.
There are some Muslims who have come out and said, they have actually even come out, some Muslims have come out and called out those guys. I remember that one guy, that Yemeni cleric, Yemeni American, the guy who was interviewed. It was Michigan.
Was that the guy? I think.
Was it? Yeah, it was Michigan. He was from Michigan.
He was even interviewed on Zeteo. And Zeteo. Yeah. And the guy literally said they even had a meeting with Korea. He's gonna be, And Ahmed is like, this is the same guy who, when you guys were being bombed, he was not saying anything.
Is asking Ali, very curious, wanasemaje msikitini kuhusu Gaza? Yeah, so
wow,
this has been
that is so loaded. Yeah, it's like you almost need a shovel. Yeah, you need a
I think Ali has been expecting this question since the day this guy said, the moment alijua hiyo story ya Gaza. I think Ali alijua tu hii ni swali najua litaulizwa kila mahali nitaenda.
Na itakuja
Yeah, so and it's a fair question. Like it's a very fair question because since the October 7th attacks and the attacks that came from Israel to Gaza, there has been, a rift between Muslims and the Democratic Party because of the genocide that the Biden government allowed to happen in Gaza. I think I want to give a little bit of background, for people to understand where Muslims have been and our journey through the Democratic Party. So before September 11th, I wasn't in the United States by then. I think in this group, maybe only Omosh was here, maybe Mike had already come here. But I think 9/11 is when Muslims shifted. Muslims had mostly been part of the Republican, had mostly been part of the Republican Party, but the shift came, after 9/11, when the Republicans just started bombing Muslim countries, and the Democrats came in defense to them. So there was a sudden shift from the Republican Party to the Democrats, because Muslims had stuck with the Republican Party before that because of the family value issues, issues to do with LGBTQ and such things. But that's a point when Muslims shifted, when they decided the issue of our people being killed is much heavier than staying in the Republican Party because they oppose LGBTQ and the likes. And Muslims have predominantly remained in the Republican Party. However, there were still holdouts within the Muslim community. And let me say specifically within mostly Arab communities that stayed with the Republicans. Then came October 7th, when there were attacks and the attacks that followed in Gaza from Israel. And there was a sudden shift when it was seen as the Joe Biden's government was complicit with Israelis in letting the bombing continue and the killings happened. So there was a mixture of feelings. So Muslims became united in saying that we are not going to vote for Joe Biden. And I will say that I was among that group, after a very long contemplation. I wasn't going to vote for Joe Biden. And let's also be clear, there was a lot of people, even outside the Muslim community, within the Democratic Party, who were fed up with Joe Biden for a number of reasons. So that happened. And then came the moment when Biden said that he will no longer ran for president, and Kamala Harris became the candidate. So there was a new opening. And at that particular moment, I think there was a lot of goodwill in the community, despite her deputizing Joe Biden. There was a lot of goodwill, and they were like, this is a new person. Let's hear what she's going to say. And then because at that point, the direction was, let's vote for a third party as a protest to the Democrats. And people were trending towards voting for Jill Stein, who was running with the Green Party. So that's where a lot of people were being directed towards, and a lot of people were on board. But when Kamala came on board, there was an opening, and people were like, okay, let's wait and listen to what she has to say. Then Kamala's campaign made a decision to shut out pro-Palestine voices at the convention, in the campaign, and everywhere. They were completely shut out. So I think that shutting out, it started bringing some confusion in the community, because there were people who are saying, okay, Joe Biden is no longer in the polls, so let's vote for Kamala. There are people who are like, no, let's just continue with what we had planned, to vote for Jill Stein and protest against the Democrats. And then Fitina ikaingia, came a group of people. And this group of people, by the way, I came to learn that most of them, these ones who said now, let's vote for Trump, these are people who had secretly, because from back in 9/11, there were some people, there were some Muslims who held out and remained Republican, and they remained there secretly. So I think these are the people who suddenly came out, and they became loud, and they were like, let's give our vote to Donald Trump because of this. So that left a lot of confusion in the community. But after all was said and done, it's only 20% of the Muslim population that ended up voting for Trump. And when I say 20%, within this 20%, there was a very significant group of people who had just been Republican and even voted for Trump in Trump's first and second elections. But then I think where I feel, and this was something that was happening in real time, where I feel like we might have got it wrong, and now this is looking in hindsight, because when these things were happening, there were people that were dying and things were happening very fast. So looking in hindsight, I think where we might have, maybe made a mistake was to obliterate the non-Muslim coalition that used to support Muslim issues within the Democratic Party. So I think this really angered a lot of people. And you saw a lot of videos of a lot of these Arab influencers who, and these are very few people who came out publicly and told people to vote for Trump. This really angered a lot of people. And I think this has lost us a coalition that always supported not only Gaza issues, but a lot of Muslim issues because of this situation. So I think there wasn't, a long-term strategy in looking at how things are going to happen. And I think there was some empathy towards wanting to put a protest vote towards Jill Stein. The thing that annoyed people the most was now these people who came out openly and they were going to Trump rallies and giving speeches. And most of these big influencers who are Trump, they have gone into hiding and they're not telling us anything. And I think this is a point where I would love for those, be they scholars or be they any kind of Muslim influencers who are actively telling people to go vote for Trump, to just come out and apologize and say, we're sorry, we were wrong. For whatever reason, Trump had already shown us who he is. So I never quite understood that part myself. And of course, you'll remember, for example, like Black American Muslims, who are very significant number of as a percentage of the overall Muslim population. They never boarded. They never boarded on the Jill sign. They never boarded. Maybe there might have been a few boarded, but I think a majority of them still voted for Kamala. But I think I also want to make it clear that because the perception that's being thrown out there right now is a perception like all Muslims voted for Trump.
Yeah.
It was a very, very small percentage. To be specific, it was 20%. I mean, 20% is not a small percentage, but if there was any difference that the Muslim vote would have made, if 100% of Muslims voted for Kamala, it may have been in Michigan only, and that still would not have won us the presidency.
Thank you for providing that context and the history, and also clarifying. I think sometimes the issue becomes, I think so many times, okay, let me start by saying, sometimes the squeakiest wheel gets the grease. So the guys who are the loudest about the atrocities are the ones probably who are able to sway. And there's some people who came out and said, I know of guys, the issue was Genocide Joe. And, with that moniker, and then Kamala comes in. And of course, I think also at the same time, she did not help the cause by blocking the Palestinian, I'm going to call it delegation during the DNC. But it's one of those situations that, without using so much word salad, it's like you really have to not use a hammer, but you have to scalpel this thing and to get it. Unfortunately, with everything that is going on and the way things are, it's always like you guys, because guess what? Latinos are facing the same thing. Because there are some guys who are very vocal, some Venezuelans, Cubans, some Latinos over there, they'll be voting for Trump, and then next thing you know, TPS is on the chopping block. And some of those guys had been here, even the protections for the Cubans, Hondurans, I think, and Venezuelans, all those are on the chopping block. Zinaenda. And now they're coming out to realize that, I mean, it is hard sometimes to comprehend when a guy tells you, this guy, even in his first term, this is what he did. He's capable of doing it. He said he was going to do a Muslim ban. Be careful. Yes, I understand. Okay, I cannot say that I understand. But at least there's a level of negotiation. You can have a negotiating room and you can have a tussle and tell Kamala, listen, maze hapa ukicheza hapa hatutakosana. But Donald Trump this guy is not that. Say ideally is either you know who he reminds me of? King Joffrey. For those guys who watched Game of Thrones, it is his way or the highway. If you disagree with him, unachujwa, you're thrown to the wolves. But it is one of those, I think, there needs to be a deeper lens to be looked into, and not just lumping all career with Muslims, because there are some Muslims who have come out and said, they have actually even come out, some Muslims have come out and called out those guys. I remember that one guy, that Yemeni cleric, Yemeni American, the guy who was interviewed. It was Michigan.
Was that the guy? I think.
Was it? Yeah, it was Michigan. He was from Michigan.
He was even interviewed on Zeteo. And Zeteo. Yeah. And the guy literally said they even had a meeting with Korea. He's gonna be, And I mean, Ahmed is like, this is the same guy who, when you guys were being bombed, he was not saying anything. So, but I think there needs to be a different perspective where instead of lumping, it's good to drill down. And again, those guys who were in support of, because you really cannot go out and identify everyone that voted for Trump. What you can do is you can probably just know the guys who are vocal about him on social media. Now I'm what do you have to say now? Because we have our brother over here. He came out and said after a long time,
he struggled.
He struggled with this thing.
He had malaria.
Malaria,
Yes.
dengue,
Yes.
shiothe.
Yes.
Even he had this
cholera.
Yes. Typhoid,
Yote.
shiothe.
Yes.
So, and then he comes out and says, you know what? Kura yangu inaenda kwa mama.
Yeah, and you know, we over here, we are, I think we are, and you know, maybe people are not. This thing was very serious.
It was,
because what Ali was seeing on a day-to-day basis, and I'm sure he'll break it down maybe if we get time some more, was what he was seeing as he goes mskitini, and the discussions and the people affected by things happening in Gaza on a daily basis. The people who they even help. Kuna mtu amefiwa na kuna mchango ama, you know, you're just there for them. It was an everyday thing for him. It's not, it wasn't something that is just saying, because I'm Muslim then I'm banding or I'm on that bandwagon. And you see it, you see the numbers and you're like, wait a minute, what is it gonna take for people to wake up? So understandably so, there is a certain way that Ali was feeling personally when looking at this, and because he was seeing these things in front of him, happening in front of him, and
don't forget he's in those spaces with our brothers and sisters in those spaces on a daily basis, because we're not privy to that.
Yes, no,
we're not privy to that.
We're not.
The only way we are privy is by him telling us.
Correct. By osmosis.
Yes.
Right. And as things are happening in front of him, he's saying, okay, damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Yeah.
Hapa inaonekana I'm doing none.
Because logic would have it, you say the twice impeached guy, he's coming out and saying ile jangi lingine Nyetanyamba is doing an awesome job. I'm like, okay, hold up. How can this guy anasema ana support say anamwambia this guy is doing an awesome job knowing exactly what he's doing? And I'm like, okay, because there's also that thing of me trying to comprehend that, okay, fine, tunanyanyaswa, but the supposed guy who might be coming in is supporting the guy who is nyanyasing us. Mse mwingine is tunanyanyaswa, but unaona ni kama is like playing double dutch. Anajaribu kutoe the line ako pale katikati, of course, because you know what, it's an electioneering season.
Yes.
And there are consequences because when you look like even there are some guys who are primaried by those Zionist guys. What's the Bowman, Cory Bush, all those guys were primaried by these Zionistas. Na wakapoteza career. So them, they were successful in if you're not for them, wewe nje. But it's politics also.
There's politics, but also as a human being, if all I did was just sit back and remember what this guy did in his first term, day one, as a Muslim, that's me. There's no way I'm voting for this guy. I don't care what song he sings.
Okay, fine.
That's me.
Then
I'm just saying, if I am just looking at his body of work, what he has done.
But then
Go ahead.
Let me say something here.
Yes.
I'm in the camp of where if you're doing one thing to punish somebody, if me, I am close with Ali, and I know Ali doesn't like the smell of shit, alafu nikosane na Ali, nimkasirikie, niende nichukue shonde nikuje nipake Ali, pia mimi nimejipaka hiyo shonde.
Correct.
That is how I usually look at things, like doing things out of anger to punish somebody else usually end up hurting you. But then also I get to understand the human aspect, and emotion usually tends to be, we react to the most current emotion we're feeling. We don't react to emotions we felt yesterday or the day before yesterday. We react to what you're feeling right now.
Okay.
So I can understand the anger, especially if you see the death, you've seen people who are suffering from the death, you see how it's going on. I can understand that anger. And that makes me, I'm usually torn when this topic comes in. I
Yeah.
am more like doing something to punish something, and it's gonna hurt you yourself. It doesn't really make sense. But then you also try to understand from that pain, because you look at it and you'll be like, if it was me in my own shoes, how would I have reacted at that particular time? Unaona? So, uh, as Alia said, there are those who voted or who stayed out of the vote based on what they were seeing.
Correct.
But then there were those who just manipulate, turn around and want to fight back. It will be too late.
Mika, that part about being torn, for me, I feel what you're saying, but again, like I said, if I was just looking at things in totality from where this guy has shown us what he is, I would have you looked at his whole body of work, I wouldn't be dealing na vitu za sasa. Yes, I will do the vitu za sasa, yes, but him already ashaonyesha kadi yake, yani he already showed his cards, according to me. So there's nothing he can do for me. That's why I was saying what I was saying. But I get what you're saying about the things that you're dealing with the now, and what you're seeing, and how that affects your emotions moving forward past that point. And as we have seen, it's I just, for humanity, if you're as a human being, it's sad. This Gaza thing is sad. Yasser Arafat, yani alikufa how long ago, and how long were they fighting? So if you are to think from that time, and we are to date, we still have a Gaza issue.
Mm-hmm.
That should tell us something, that there's something wrong from a human perspective with this whole thing. There's just no way of saying, this, it's wrong. It's wrong in all sorts of ways. And we all know who the person who's wrong. And that's the sad part. And, as long as you are against, then there's always repercussions.